we're sort of talking around this American Eagle ad right now, and maybe we should just talk about it. So, were you surprised by the reaction?
I did dream.
This is very demeaning to the issue of white supremacy, which in my opinion also basically says this is not that important and like I don't really care. She could have easily said, even not taken any responsibility or accountability at all. She could have said, so GQ just did an interview with Sydney Sweeney about the notorious American Eagle ad and the controversy surrounding it. And let's just say we were not overreacting, okay? We were not overreacting. I'm going to react to the interview and then we're going to discuss it.
I mean, Christy is a story about domestic violence and specifically like homophobia in domestic violence. And The Housemaid, which I also saw, takes on domestic violence from in a totally different genre. And then I did read that your American Eagle collection benefited a domestic violence charity. Is that, did I have all that right?
Yes.
Okay. We spent a lot of time this year working around that issue, and I just wondered if it meant something to you.
It does.
How was that very objectifying toward women ad about domestic violence? Like, you have to be kidding me on that. So yeah, that's pretty weird.
I will always speak out about something that is important to me. And for me to speak out, I use art. And I think that through my characters in my movies, it's a way for me to be able to do my part that I can and spread awareness in different ways through my characters. And that's how I've always learned to communicate. And it's really important.
If I look at your IMDb page, it does not look like a very political career, but you have become very swept up in politics. And so I wondered if that has surprised you as you put your ideas and yourself into art, not.
I hate this, I don't know, is the word presupposition? I'm not quite sure what the word is. This idea that all of these real life things that affect so many people, like something like white supremacy, is political. In that case, being a person of color, being a woman, is simply political just by existing. And the way that this interviewer frames it makes it seem like, oh, this is just unnecessary. It's unnecessary drama. You're getting swept up in this unnecessary political drama. And I just think that that's a very dishonest way to frame it morally and intellectually.
Into art, not commentary. Art, not commentary.
Art, not commentary. I'm sorry, but a lot of the time, art is commentary. It is literally meant for us to process life, to process our societal constructs. Politics are part of life. They're literally inherent part of life. For you to divorce them and say that they're not is really just living in a state of illusion. It's living in a state of non-reality. I hate when people use that excuse. I'm not trying to get political here. Okay, well, I'm just talking about my rights as a woman, my rights as a human, and you're just trying to take the easy way out and say you don't want to get political, when in reality, it doesn't matter if we call it political or not. It's our lives. It's the lives of real people.
I've always believed that I'm not here to tell people what to think. I'm just here to kind of open their eyes to different ideas.
I understand that perspective. Of course, the most powerful way to interact with truth is not to tell people what to think, obviously. Art can be really powerful in the sense that, what you're portraying is simply just something that's up for interpretation of the viewer, up to the interpretation of the audience. It helps them process their own morality.
And that's what I've always leaned towards.
I think a lot of people feel like it's better for art if artists can keep themselves a little bit separate from politics.
Yeah, I've never talked about my personal life.
I know.
Politics are not your personal life. It's societal. It's social intelligence.
So what I'm going to do is talk about your year as a phenomenon in the culture, okay? And a big thing that happened to you this year is that you ended your engagement, and I got push notifications about it. It was, and we all sort of looked up and we're like, oh, Sydney Sweeney isn't just a talented actress and an up and coming producer. She's someone that people are really obsessed with and really fascinated by.
Oh man.
I know. And I wondered, did your sense of your own fame change this year?
I don't think people are as obsessed with her as people say. She's just problematic, and that's why people want to talk about her, because of the things that she says, the things that she does, especially when in regards to this whole American Eagle ad. Like, that was a very, very bold thing to do. That was a bold ad, especially in this, you know, social and political climate where we've got ICE raids.
Videos of ICE tackling a young mother, tear gas being used in a Chicago residential neighborhood, and the smashing of car windows.
And especially when America is starting to resemble 1930s Germany, doing an ad that talks about white genes being superior, or at least infers that, that's going to be up for discussion for a lot of people. And maybe that was kind of part of her whole, like, you know, branding all along. Maybe this was just intentional rage bait marketing to, you know, get her to this point. Of course, she's going to want to play naive on that, as we will soon see, but she's not that interesting.
No. I surround myself with a really, really strong group of people
Such a pure
who
response.
have been in my life since I was little.
I'm sure. Haven't we heard about, like, some of her family members being, like, proud MAGA people, like, wearing the red hats and stuff? I'd have to, like, look that up to confirm that, but that's what I've heard. Actually, let me see if I can look that up right now. So apparently Sweeney's brother had posted photos with party guests wearing a red hat that reads "Make 60 Great Again." This is a reference to Trump's slogan and the popular red hats. In an additional photo, a man was seen wearing a pro-police shirt. Sweeney shortly responded on X, formerly Twitter, telling people, you guys, this is wild. I don't know what I was gonna say. You guys, is that all she says? You guys, this is wild. An innocent celebration for my mom's milestone 60th birthday has turned into an absurd political statement, which was not the intention. Please stop making assumptions. Much love to everyone, and happy birthday, Mom. The controversial hats and shirts were not part of her family. She clarified they were actually friends of her mom. The people who brought the things that people were upset about were actually my mom's friends from LA. Of course she's going to try and say, oh, actually, it's from the blue state. Who have kids that are walking outside in the Pride Parade. Oh, yeah, of course. And thought it would be funny to wear because they were coming to Idaho. You from Idaho, Sydney Sweeney? I guess she was born in Washington, but I saw this other article on Reddit that says Zendaya and Sydney Sweeney are in a bitter feud over the latter's Trump views and won't appear together at Euphoria press events. I've always loved Zendaya. Zendaya is just truly a queen. This one says, metro.co.uk says, Zendaya refusing to stand next to Euphoria co-star after fallout. After 6 years on the HBO teen drama, opposing political views have gotten between Zendaya and Sydney's friendship, which is now in tatters, insiders claim. It is said that Zendaya is refusing to do press calls for the upcoming season of Euphoria with Sydney, and that they will not be seen standing next to each other. Well, if that's the case, if they're not, because they have done press with each other in the past, and if they're not, like, being seen together anymore, I do believe that is sending a message. Whether or not we can, like, confirm what these insiders are saying are correct. After this, multiple news outlets in the US reported that Sydney Sweeney's voting records show her being a registered Republican, though she has not spoken out about this. I'm truly not surprised, but also, are we even allowed to know that? Like, isn't that kind of like like illegal for us to know, like, how people vote or even their party? I don't know about that. I'm not sure we should know that. An insider told Daily Mail it's a difficult position for Zendaya to be in because even if she stands next to Sydney on the red carpet, it can be read as her excusing Sydney's views on Trump and her refusal to apologize for the racist ad. I mean, I could understand that as well, but I would at least hope that Zendaya would be doing it for more than just like public image reasons, because as we will see as we get into the interview further, to me, her stance is made pretty clear.
I'm just excited to see what happens next. And so I don't really let other people define who I am.
I'm happy to hear that.
It takes balls. I'm not gonna lie. It takes balls to be a celebrity, you know? It does. You have to have extremely thick skin. Even just being like going viral and on you know, the internet can be really challenging. You know, it can be really challenging when you get so many different perspectives of you and your takes, and you know, not all of them are positive, right? And so I do understand, like, she can't internalize everything that everyone thinks about her, right? And I do understand that. I respect that. However, when it comes to something that is this socially charged, this something this important in society, right? With the context of, you know, it was pretty clear within that commercial, the context of, you know, what they were trying to communicate. And I'm pretty sure she's well aware. I can guarantee you she's not stupid. This girl ain't dumb. She comes across as quite vapid, but I don't think that she's internally stupid. She knows who her target audience is, and we'll get to that later. She does not want to alienate them.
I've a lot of secondhand concern for you lately. We're sort of talking around this American Eagle ad right now, and maybe we should just talk about it. So, were you surprised by the reaction?
I did a jean ad. I mean, the reaction definitely was a surprise, but it was, I love jeans. All I wear are jeans. I'm literally in jeans and a t-shirt like every day of my life.
Jeans are uncontroversial. Jeans are awesome.
Yeah, I like your jeans.
You look great in your jeans. I think I know how you're going to answer this, but I'm going to ask anyway. I mean, the president tweeted about the jeans ad, or Truth Socialed about the jeans ad, and that just seems to me like a very crazy moment for anyone, and I wondered what that was like.
It was surreal.
It was surreal.
Mm-hmm.
And
The way she said that, with the smile on her face, she seemed very flattered. She did. She did. Especially when you put everything together. The family, the ad, the way she's responding, her smugness. Okay, I have dealt with a lot of narcissists in my life. I came from a narcissistic family dynamic. I got caught up in another narcissistic family dynamic for many years. I'm very well aware of what narcissists look like, and I'm not going to diagnose anyone, but she definitely has some narcissistic traits, if you ask me, because she's very smug, and she's got that smug narcissistic smile. And obviously, we're not going to diagnose people based off on a smile. Okay, I don't support that, and I don't, you know. There's a whole discussion to be had about narcissism and diagnosis and what we can talk about that's not diagnostic. It's a whole nuanced topic. But that right there, she looked very flattered. She looked very flattered. And I think that there's a reason she responded in such a vague way. Obviously, as a celebrity who wants to keep getting booked, you know, being either anti-Trump or pro-Trump is a very bold statement to take, and it could definitely limit her, you know, ability to get work in the future. But I also think there's another reason why she's being very vague about that. I'll get to that in a minute.
I kind of just put my phone away. I was filming every day. I'm filming Euphoria, so I'm working like 16-hour days, and I don't really bring my phone on set, so I work and then I go home and I go to sleep.
I get this. As someone who has like gone viral in different on different YouTube channels, different things I've tried to do online at different times, I do understand, like, it's too much. It's too much to deal with. It's too much to handle. And when you feel like, especially if you feel like it's like an unfair criticism, you're just like, you know what, you gotta make a strong stance, even if it does affect you. Like, you can't tell people that. You can't tell me, no, this made me cry. you can't tell people that, because that's just going to make you a target. So I understand why she's saying this. Like, she's, even if it did affect her, she's going to put on a brave face.
I don't want to see Christy because of that. Like, do you worry about that?
No. If somebody is closed off because of something they read online to a powerful story like Christy, then I hope something else can open their eyes to being open to art and being open to learning. And I'm not gonna be affected by that.
So they're basically, she's saying, are you afraid they're not going to see Christy, which apparently is like one of her projects she's working on, or a future project or whatever that's coming out? Is she afraid that people are just like going to boycott her, basically? And she's like, no, you know, if because of something that they read online, they don't want to support me and they don't want to watch this art that I'm making, then, you know, that's their problem, kind of thing. And hopefully something else opens their eyes. And it's kind of a condescending way to, you know, frame it to the people who might be boycotting her, because boycotting absolutely is a powerful way. It's a powerful way for the public to interact with celebrity culture, with businesses, with, you know, big mega corporations. Like, boycotting is really the best way we can vote, is with our dollar, right? With our attention, in the attention economy. So, you know, I feel like her being kind of condescending to people boycotting is, you know, it's not really fair. And it comes off as like a little, what's the word? A little out of touch, you know?
Yeah. You've come here like really willing to talk about this whole discourse that doesn't have that much to do with you, and I'm grateful for that.
She's got a kiss.
Is there something that you want to say about the ad itself?
The interviewer.
The Sydney Sweeney has great genes. Do you have...
The ad spoke for itself.
You think the ad spoke for itself? Okay.
Yeah.
And the criticism of the content, which was basically that maybe specifically in this political climate, like, white people shouldn't joke about genetic superiority. Like, that was kind of like the criticism, broadly speaking. And since you are talking about this, I just wanted to give you an opportunity to talk about that specifically.
I think that when I have an issue that I want to speak about, people will hear.
We should talk about cats.
That is a very clear stance, in my opinion. Let's go over this again, because I want to really hit like every aspect of this.
I have an issue that I want to speak about, people will hear.
This is very demeaning to the issue of white supremacy, which in my opinion also basically says this is not that important, and like, I don't really care. And the smugness when she says it too, like, does anyone else like notice her super smug smile? Like, she's acting like this is so ridiculous, like I shouldn't even be having to talk about this, I shouldn't even be asked about this, when in reality, like, that ad was very, very, very clear in its subliminal messaging to anyone who has critical thinking. I'm sorry, but if you don't see it, you don't have critical thinking. I've seen breakdowns on it that explain exactly why from literal like professors. It 100% is subliminal messaging for white supremacy. She could have easily said, even not taken any responsibility or accountability at all. She could have said, this was not about white supremacy. You guys are all misconstruing it, and I would never take an ad about white supremacy, and I'm not a white supremacist. She didn't even have to take the blame. She didn't have to apologize. All she had to do was say that. She could have even just shifted the blame onto the audience for misconstruing it, but she didn't do that. And that, in my opinion, is because she very much is a white supremacist. It makes sense with the context of everything that we know about her, from her, where she comes from with her family, to the ad that she's taken a part of, to the way that she's interacting with this interview. Okay, like, it's very clear who anyone from a PR perspective who has any sort of PR intelligence can tell that she is marketing herself to a very specific audience. And who is that? It is MAGA men. A lot of the time, they're also, I mean, what part of MAGA inherently is racism. We see that with ICE. We see that with just their principles, right? It's inherently racist, and we can talk about that in another video as to why. I mean, to me, it's someone like me, it's quite obvious. Someone who is deconstructed from religion, someone who's deconstructed from white supremacy in their environment, etc. To me, it's quite obvious. But here's the thing. Whether or not this is like her personal belief, from a PR perspective, I know what she's trying to do. She does not want to alienate, and this is another reason why she thought it was so surreal that Trump retweeted her, is because she's trying not to alienate her target audience, which her target audience at this point are MAGA people. They're the ones who are supporting her, they're the ones who are defending her, and especially MAGA men. I have seen it when I've talked about with Sydney Sweeney on my channel in the past. The MAGA men, they go crazy for Sydney Sweeney. They're rabid for Sydney Sweeney and defending her. They see her as this like little princess that they got to defend. Let me tell you, she knows her target audience. She's not stupid. And she knows that if she were to say, I'm not a white supremacist, then she would alienate her white supremacist target audience. She knows what she represents. She knows she's the little blondie poster child for white supremacy at this point. And she thinks and she believes that this is what's going to move her career forward, and this is how she's going to get paid. She knows she's a rage baiter, and she also knows that she's appealing to a demographic that does typically have money, you know, and it might be a dying demographic, which we can talk about in the future. I definitely think that there is an extinction burst of the MAGA patriarchal white supremacist Republican, which I'm not saying all Republicans are, okay, don't get me wrong, but MAGA definitely, they're based on a certain patriarchal perspective, okay? I think it's so interesting and funny that I've had people say, oh, she's just trying not to pander to people who mentally liberals who misinterpret things, and like she just doesn't want to pander, and she's staying, you know, digging in her heels and staying strong. Yeah, I could see she's digging in her heels, but if you're gonna say that she's not pandering, that is absolutely not the case. She 100% is pandering, just not to liberals. She's pandering to MAGA white men. So that's what she 100% knows what she's doing from a PR perspective. Someone who panders to such an evil point of view, such an evil group of people, okay? I'm not saying all Republicans, but I'm talking about people who specifically are white supremacists, right? What she's doing is evil. It just is. And if you can't see that, you're part of the problem. All right, let's continue with this interview.
We should talk about Cassie. You got back together with Cassie. You spent some time in Cassie land.
I am.
I wondered if after the break and after the changes in your life since the last time you were Cassie, if you came back to that role with a different perspective on her character, her arc.
Cassie's just so much fun. She's so crazy. And I don't know if I can implement any of my own knowledge or life experiences to Cassie, because she's just so on her own plane and in her own world and thinks completely differently.
A lot of people are trying to say that she's Cassie in real life. I've seen that comment so many times, and she's very clearly trying to differentiate who she is from Cassie, because she knows. She's like, oh, I don't really check my phone. I don't really get into the drama. She knows. She knows what people are saying about her. Her answers very clearly show that.
The early part of your career was defined by a lot of chatter about that, right? About, is it empowering or not empowering, blah, 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 like expression.
In regards to my body?
Yeah.
I think that the conversation around it is changing. I've always looked at a woman's body as a very beautiful, powerful tool. I've always looked at it as my body is another tool to tell this story.
I don't know. I don't like, too much of like body language reading. I'm not an expert on that, but I do see a little bit of pain in her eyes when she says that, when she's talking about women's bodies being used as a tool and like using it as a tool herself, her own body. And I see a little pain there. I don't know if I'm reading into it on that specific thing. But if you've seen Euphoria, which I do really enjoy the story of Euphoria, season 2 was not so good, but season 1 was very good. It kind of sucked to see how much she was objectified in that show. But you have, like, it does come down to what her target audience is now. A lot of guys saw her in Euphoria. They saw her naked. They saw her having sex, you know, in the show. And I do think that that's where she got a lot of her audience from, right? Is the men who were watching that show, the young men who were watching that show. And in that show, herself, she is definitely objectified there too. And I don't really dislike that Euphoria went in that direction, in the sense that, like, they explored how the difficulty of being a woman, a beautiful woman, you know, with a beautiful body, being objectified. Like, I don't hate exploring that, but I do feel like the show did it in such a way that wasn't the most respectful at times. And I wouldn't be surprised if she's got a little bit of trauma from that. Just saying. I wouldn't be surprised. I'm not saying she does. I just wouldn't be surprised.
I mean, I'm thinking about The Housemaid. Like, there's a scene in that where you're in this home theater and you're wearing, like, a push-up bra. And it's just like, okay, this is...
Not a push-up bra. This is just my boobs.
Oh. Wow. Fact check me.
Fact checking
That's
that.
just
Very
like a
proud of
sports
her
bra or
boobs.
something?
Yeah.
Good God. Okay.
I mean, she's wearing what she'd wear to bed. She's being comfortable. It's for herself. It's not for anybody else.
Great.
Yeah.
I haven't seen that scene, so I have no clue. I can tell. It's interesting. She definitely is very proud of her boobs. I'm not saying it's wrong for a woman to be proud of her body. Like, if you got it, flaunt it, honey. Like, we have no problems with that. But at the same time, it's like, whether or not you're doing it for the male gaze or truly doing it for yourself, but you just think you're, you know, like, you're doing it for the male gaze, but you think you're doing it for yourself. It can get really complicated with this patriarchal society when it comes to that kind of thing, you know, what we internalize. I would wonder if she does base a lot of her self-worth on her looks, and especially her boobs. If there's such a point of pride, it makes me wonder if they are also the point of her self-worth. That if, you know, she got a breast reduction tomorrow, if she would, you know, feel like less of a person. That's just something I wonder, which I'm not trying to blame her for that. A lot of women have based their worth on their looks. Unfortunately, it is how we are socialized. It is how we are trained, right? And we are trained to seek male validation from the patriarchy through fitting a certain standard, through looking beautiful for their gaze, right? And so I don't fully blame her for that, but I do hope that at some point that she can deconstruct and recognize, because age comes for everyone, right? She will age. And eventually it's going to be a difficult transition for her and women like her if she does not learn to base her worth on something else. And I do think that she does value art to some extent, in the sense that, like she said, she wants to play complicated characters, right? And so, you know, it's not always characters that are completely centered on her looks. And if she, you know, wants to make money on her looks while she's got it, I don't know. It's a gray area, because in some ways that a part of me wants to be like, go girl, get your coin, get your bag. But then another part of me is like, you're doing that at the expense of other women, and you're basically just feeding into the patriarchy. So it's a gray area. It's something that I have feelings of conflict over.
Oh, I think that as time goes on, people will see that I'm way more aware of things than people think.
Can you say a little bit more?
I mean,
She's basically saying, I'm not stupid, y'all. And to be honest, I never thought she was. I never thought she was stupid. She comes off as pretty vapid. In a certain way, she kind of is pretty shallow. But she knows what she's doing. And I think that's one of the reasons why we can't be giving her as much grace by just saying she's stupid, because she's not. She admitted herself. She's aware. She knows what she's doing. And she is intentionally saying those things about the American Eagle ad. Okay? She's being very intentional about which audience she knows is her target audience and who she is pandering to.
I mean, if I say it, then I like to let the art speak for itself. I think that's where it's fun.
Okay, but you know that you are giving us permission to keep projecting a little bit. Like, we're gonna keep taking what you do and like putting it up on our board of like, what does Sydney think?
I can't wait to see what the board says.
Okay.
Well, I didn't quite lose as many brain cells as I thought I would, but I've always kind of known that she's not stupid, you know? I've always known that, and I think that's one of the reasons why, like I said, we can't be giving her a pass on this, because she knows who she's pandering to. She is keeping these movements like white supremacy alive, very evil movements, and she's profiting off of them. She's making money off of it, and it's not right. And while I can respect, you know, her as an actress, I think she's a pretty good actress. She was very intense in Euphoria and other things I've seen her in. I haven't seen most of her projects, but she has a responsibility. We all do with our platforms. Anytime we gain any sort of traction, success, public, you know, recognition, we have a responsibility with what we promote. Okay. And in my opinion, she does not get a pass for what she is inferring and continues to infer with this whole situation. Okay. And it's very frustrating because she knows that by answering the way that she did, she is basically not alienating her white supremacist target audience, but at the same time, she is doing it in such a way that you could still cast doubt on and make us, as the ones who are actually perceiving the accurate truth, seem as the ones who are misconstruing what she's saying, or putting words in her mouth, or projecting our own thoughts or whatever onto her. She's done it in such a way that she can still rely on that plausible deniability. And that takes some social skill, that takes some intelligence. She's not stupid. And it's just unfortunate, though, because it continues evil. Oh, and there's one, you know what actress I actually saw recently? There's that actress who's in the last season of The White Lotus. She was so good in that. She was so charming. I adored her. I adore her as an actress. It was what's her name? Amy Lou Wood. She commented a barfy emoji underneath this interview, and what a queen. She is such a queen for that. I adore her. I adore people who just like call out the bullshit, because I'm tired of narcissistic people, and I'm tired of people who put on this image and pretend to be good and just kind of have this like what's the word? Duplicitous kind of nature about them, which she very clearly has. I just prefer people to just be like outright and honest about who they are. You know what I mean? Like take a stance. Just take a stance. But she knows if she took a stance for what her true values most likely are, which is, you know, MAGA, white supremacy, she would absolutely be flayed. So what she did was smart, but not moral, in my opinion. And but I adore very upfront people who are just real ones, like Amy Lou Wood. She's amazing. I've seen her in interviews too. She's adorable. And I just want more people in the world to be more authentic like her, and just realize that you can find success without having to pander to an evil movement. Like, that is not necessary. And maybe it does reflect her own personal values. Maybe it's not just a grift for her. Maybe she really does. And in some ways, like, that's worse. You know what I mean? Like, having those values, you gotta know that it's from the family you came from. No one is born with white supremacy and racism. No one is born that way. That is something that is socialized within you. And I truly hope that Sydney Sweeney does deconstruct that at one point, but when it's a system that benefits you, it's very difficult to deconstruct. When it's something that you're kind of born in that environment and you internalize some of those ideas, but then eventually you kind of experience what it is like to be failed by the system, like someone like me who's been disabled. I was once very religious. I want to tell my story soon. But I deconstructed religion because it came to a point where it no longer served me. I was disabled. I was once a missionary for the church, and then when I reached out to help for the church, they didn't help me, and I started to realize, like, this is not what I thought it was, right? So suffering and being failed by the system that I was raised in was actually what helped me to deconstruct, because I don't know if I ever would have if I would have continued to thrive within that system. And because people like her, who, you know, women like her who are blue-eyed, blonde-haired, they are at the top of that system. She definitely represents the type of woman that white supremacist men especially will fight for the death for. She is the type of woman that they will protect because they see her as more valuable based on her features, which is a very unfair way to value someone, if you ask me. And I'm not just saying this because I'm brown hair and brown-eyed. I'm because, you know, I am white, and I'm sure as difficult as my life has been, it could have been even more difficult if I was a Black woman or a woman of color being disabled and how I was treated by the medical system. I can't imagine with how bad it was as a white woman. I can't imagine what I would have experienced if I was a Black woman going into the medical system. It would have been even more horrendous. And so I have experienced some level of privilege, but I am grateful that I have been able to deconstruct something that hurts so many people. And I truly, truly hope that she is able to at some point as well, but I don't have a lot of hope for that because she isn't forced to. It doesn't affect her, and because it benefits her, there's going to be no reason for her to deconstruct. But we can always hope for the best for humanity and that people will learn. And that's my desire. You know, my desire is that we can let go of these harmful belief systems as a collective once and for all. But I know that that's a little bit of an idealistic point of view and a little idealistic hope, because it's not to say that I want everyone to believe the same thing, but I don't think that it is necessary to have so much hate for people simply because they have different genetics for you. Like, it's just not a logical system. It doesn't make sense, and it is harmful, and there's no point. There's no point. So hopefully you enjoyed this video. I'm going to try something like this again in the future, see if it does well, and I don't know, go from there. Thanks for watching.